The eternal spire had existed for longer than most stars. It floated in the empty space between galaxies, a station built by beings who had forgotten more knowledge than younger races would ever learn. For 10,000 cycles, the Cosmic Council had met here without interruption. 12 elder races, each one ancient beyond measure, gathered to discuss matters that shaped the fate of billions. On this day, the Luminary ambassador was speaking. Jeth was a creature of pure plasma, contained within magnetic fields that shimmered like captured starlight. Its voice rang through the crystalline chamber as it addressed the assembled beings. Some were made of silicon. Others existed as patterns of light. A few had forms so strange that lesser minds could not comprehend them. They had gathered for the Centennial Accord, a ceremony so old that no one remembered why it had started. But traditions mattered to immortal beings. When you lived forever, rituals gave shape to the endless flow of time. Jeeth was mid-sentence. When the alarms began, the sound cut through the chamber like a blade. Every being present turned toward the great windows that looked out into space. Something was approaching the spire, something small and fast and completely unexpected. High, Arbiter Vornth rose from his throne. His body was made of living crystal, grown over millions of years. Light bent strangely around him as he moved. What is the meaning of this? The answer came in the form of a ship dot. It was tiny by the standards of the elder races, barely 200 meters long. Its hull was scarred and blackened, pitted by impacts and burns. Primitive chemical rockets flared at its stern as it tumbled toward the spire's docking bay. The station's defenses should have vaporized it. The approach corridor was lined with weapons that could destroy warships. But the little vessel kept coming. It punched through shield after shield, not with superior technology, but with sheer momentum and desperate luck. The ship crashed into the docking bay in a shower of sparks and torn metal. It skidded across the floor, leaving a trail of debris, before finally grinding to a stop against the far wall. Silence filled the council chamber. Then the ship's airlock opened with a groan of tortured metal. 5 figures stumbled out. They wore patched environmental suits, held together with tape and hope. They moved awkwardly in the spire's artificial gravity, clearly exhausted, clearly pushed beyond their limits. The one in front pulled off her helmet. She was female by the standards of her species. Her face was slick with sweat. Her eyes were bloodshot and wild. But there was something in those eyes that the council had not seen in millennia. Desperation. Real, burning, mortal desperation. "We are humanity," she said. Her voice was hoarse, but it did not shake. "And we need to speak to whoever's in charge. Right now." The council had never been interrupted before. Security drones surrounded the 5 humans within seconds. The beings in the chamber watched with expressions ranging from outrage to fascination. Ambassador Jeketh's plasma form flickered with agitation. High Arbiter Vorn stepped forward, his crystal body catching the light. "You have violated the sanctity of the eternal spire," Vorn said. His voice was cold and ancient. "You have interrupted the Centennial Accord. These are crimes punishable by immediate termination." The woman did not back down. "My name is Captain Elena Vasquez. These are my crew. We have traveled for 6 months across distances that should have killed us. Our ship's engines are barely functional. We have no weapons. We are not a threat to you. Then why have you come?" Captain Vasquez looked around the chamber. She saw beings of impossible age and power. She saw technology that made her species look like children playing with rocks. And she did not flinch. "Because our world is dying," she said. "A rogue stellar fragment is heading toward Earth. It will impact in 18 months. When it does, everything we have ever built, everyone we have ever loved, will be gone." The council members exchanged glances. Some communicated in frequencies beyond human hearing. Others spoke through quantum entanglement, sharing thoughts across dimensions. "We discovered your existence 6 months ago," Vasquez continued. "We found ruins on Mars, old ruins. They contained records of a galactic community, of races that had existed for millions of years. We learned that we were not alone." She paused, breathing hard. "We built a ship in 4 months. We used technology we barely understood. The journey here killed our engines and probably shortened our lives. We knew we might not survive. We came, anyway." One of the other humans stepped forward. He was older, with gray at his temples and a calm expression that hid deep exhaustion. "I am Dr. Marcus Webb," he said. "I calculated the odds of reaching you alive at less than 12%. Every person on this ship volunteered knowing that." High Arbiter Voran studied them for a long moment. His crystalline eyes showed no emotion that humans could read. "You were not seeded," he said finally. "Our scans show no markers of guided evolution. You developed independently on an unregistered world." "We evolved," Captain Vasquez confirmed. "We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own stupidity. We clawed our way from caves to the stars. And now we are asking for help." The chamber erupted in debate. The elder races spoke in languages that the humans' translation devices could barely process. Some voices were curious. Others were dismissive. A few seemed almost afraid. Captain Vasquez stood in the center of it all, her crew gathered around her. Lieutenant Yuki Tanaka kept her back straight through military discipline alone. Engineer Kofi Asante studied every piece of technology he could see, his mind already working on problems. Zen linguist Priya Sharma listened to the alien conversations, catching fragments, building patterns. They were 5 humans in a room full of gods. They were mortal creatures who had crashed into immortality's front door. They were afraid and exhausted and completely out of their depth, but they did not leave. Hours passed. The debate continued. Finally, High Arbiter Voranth raised a crystalline hand and silence fell. "The Council has reached a preliminary decision," he announced. "Your request for assistance will be formally received. It will be assigned to the appropriate subcommittee for review. A decision will be rendered in the standard time frame." Captain Vasquez felt something cold settle in her stomach. "What is the standard time frame?" Voranth's crystal face showed no expression. 300 of your solar cycles. Earth would be ash in 18 months. The 5 humans stood in the ancient chamber, surrounded by beings who had lived for millions of years. They had crossed the void between stars. They had crashed through defenses that should have destroyed them. They had stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy and asked for help. And they had been told to wait 300 years. Captain Vasquez looked at her crew. She saw the shock in their faces, the despair threatening to overwhelm them. Then she looked at the Council, at their ancient, patient, immortal faces. They had not been dismissed. Not yet. The Council did not execute the humans. This surprised everyone, including the humans themselves. Instead, they were given quarters in a forgotten section of the Eternal Spire. The rooms were meant for beings of silicon and light, not flesh and blood. The humans made do. They had been making do their entire lives. Captain Vasquez sat on what might have been a chair, staring at the wall. Her crew gathered around her in the dim light. They had not slept in 30 hours. They had not eaten in longer than that. But sleep and food could wait. Earth could not. 300 years, Lieutenant Tanaka said. Her voice was flat, controlled, but her hands shook slightly. They want us to wait 300 years. They do not understand urgency, Dr. Webb said quietly. I have been watching them, listening. These beings live for millions of years. To them, 3 centuries is like 3 weeks to us. They cannot comprehend that we will be dead before their committee even meets. Engineer Asante laughed bitterly. We crossed the stars in a ship held together with wire and prayers. We crashed through their defenses. And they want to put us in a queue. Priya Sharma had been silent, but now she spoke. It is not just that they are slow. They are afraid. Everyone turned to look at her. I have been listening to their conversations, Sharma explained. My translation device caught fragments. They are not just bureaucratic. They are terrified of making decisions. Any decision. They have lived so long that they have forgotten how to act. Captain Vasquez stood up. She walked to the small window that looked out into the void. Stars burned in the distance, ancient and cold. Then we cannot rely on them, she said. The others exchanged glances. Captain, Tanaka said carefully, what exactly are you suggesting? Vasquez turned back to face her crew. Her eyes were hard, determined. The desperation was still there, but now it had been forged into something sharper. We came here for information, for help. The Council will not give us help. So we take the information. Over the following days, the humans began to explore. The Eternal Spire was vast beyond imagination. It contained libraries that held the knowledge of 1,000 civilizations. It held archives that recorded events from before Earth's sun had formed. The Council considered these records sacred, protected by laws older than human language. The humans did not care about the laws. Engineer Asante was the first to find a way into restricted areas. He had spent his life solving problems with limited resources. The Spire's security systems were advanced beyond anything humanity had built, but they were also old. They had not been updated in centuries. Why would they be? No one had ever tried to break into the Spire before. Asante found patterns in the security. He found gaps. He found ways through Sharma translated the archives they discovered. Her gift for languages extended to the visual and mathematical forms that some species used. Slowly, piece by piece, she built a picture of galactic history. Dr. Webb analyzed the political structures they uncovered. He mapped the relationships between the elder races, their alliances, and their fears. And he found something interesting. The Council is not a government, he told the others one night. They had gathered in their quarters, speaking in whispers. It is not even really an alliance. It is a defense pact. Defense against what? Tanaka asked. Webb pulled up a holographic display. He had stolen the data from an archive that humans were definitely not supposed to access. The image showed a star map, but large sections of it were marked in red. Against them, Webb said. The Varax. The name hung in the air like a curse. I have seen that word, Sharma said slowly. In the fragments I translated. The Council members do not speak it often. When they do, they seem afraid. They should be afraid, Webb said. From what I can piece together, the Varax are predators. Not like animals hunting prey. They are predators of civilizations. They consume entire species. They take everything. Technology, resources, even the minds and memories of their victims. Captain Vasquez leaned forward. How long have they been doing this? Millions of years. Maybe longer. The Council formed specifically to stand against them. 12 races that survived the Varax expansion. They banded together, pooled their resources, and established a boundary. A line the Varax would not cross. But they have not actually fought the Varax. No. The Council has spent 8,000 years maintaining the boundary through deterrence, through the threat of war. But they have never actually gone to war. They are too afraid. Tanaka frowned. The Council has the numbers, the technology. If they all fought together, surely they could win. Webb shook his head sadly. They are immortal, Lieutenant. Or close to it. They have lived for so long that death has become the ultimate horror. The Varax know this. The Varax use it. They do not need to win battles. They just need to make war so terrible that no one is willing to fight. Silence fell over the group. Outside the window, stars burned with indifferent light. "There is something else," Sharma said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She pulled up another display, showing a section of the star map far from Council space. "This is where Earth is," she said. "Far beyond the Council's territory. In a region that the Varax have been slowly approaching for centuries." Captain Vasquez stared at the map. She stared at the tiny dot that represented her home, and she felt something cold and terrible growing in her mind. "The stellar fragment," she said slowly. "The one heading toward Earth." "Yes," Sharma confirmed. "I found records. Old records, hidden in archives that no one has accessed in thousands of years. The fragment's trajectory is not natural. It was redirected, changed, pushed onto a collision course with Earth. By who?" Sharma did not answer. She did not need to. The Varax had noticed humanity. Somehow, across the vast distances of space, they had seen a young species rising on a small blue world. They had watched humans split the atom and reach for the stars. They had calculated the potential, the threat, the danger, and they had decided to end it before it could begin. Captain Vasquez stood up. She walked to the window again, but this time she was not looking at the stars. She was looking at her own reflection in the glass. "The Council will not help us," she said. "They are too afraid. They have been hiding from the Varax for thousands of years, and they will keep hiding until the galaxy is empty." "Then what do we do?" Tanaka asked. Vasquez turned to face her crew. These 4 people had followed her across impossible distances. They had risked death 100 times. They had left behind everyone they loved for a chance, just a chance of saving their world. "We cannot fight the Varax," she said. "We cannot hide from them. They have already found us. They have already tried to kill us." She paused. "So we talked to them." The crew stared at her in shock. "Captain," Webb said carefully, "the Varax have destroyed countless civilizations. They have consumed species far more advanced than us. Why would they listen to anything we have to say?" "Because no one has ever tried talking to them," Vasquez replied. "Every species they have encountered has either fled or fought. No one has ever walked up to them and asked for a conversation." "That is insane," Tanaka said. "Yes," Vasquez agreed. "It is completely insane. But insane is all we have left." She looked at her crew one by one. She saw their fear. She saw their doubt. But she also saw something else. She saw the same desperate courage that had brought them across the stars. "We are going to find the Varax," Captain Vasquez said. "And we are going to make them listen." Earth had 18 months left. The humans had no time to waste. The journey to Varax space took 3 weeks. The human ship was barely functional. Its engines coughed and stuttered. Its hull groaned with every jump through faster-than-light space. The crew took turns monitoring systems that could fail at any moment, knowing that a single malfunction could leave them stranded in the void forever. But the ship held together. Somehow, impossibly, it held together. The Council had refused to help them. When Captain Vasquez announced her intention to seek out the Varax, High Arbiter Vorant had simply stared at her with his ancient crystal eyes. "You will die," he had said. Not a threat, just a statement of fact. Then he had turned away, dismissing the humans from his attention entirely. The other elder races had been equally unhelpful. Some seemed amused by the humans' foolishness. Others appeared almost sad, as if watching children walk into a fire. But none of them tried to stop the humans. None of them offered assistance. They had given up on humanity already. Now the small ship moved through regions of space that no Council vessel had entered in thousands of years. The stars here were older, colder. Some had already died. leaving behind nothing but darkness and the faint glow of cooling embers. Lieutenant Tanaka sat at the navigation console, plotting their course through the void. Behind her, Engineer Asante worked on keeping the engines alive for just a few more hours. Just a few more days. Dr. Webb studied everything they had learned about the Varax, searching for any weakness, any vulnerability. Sharma listened to the radio frequencies, trying to catch any signal that might guide them to their destination. Captain Vasquez stood at the front of the bridge, watching the darkness ahead. "Captain," Sharma said suddenly, "I am picking up something." Everyone turned to look at her. "What kind of something?" Vasquez asked. "A signal. Very faint. It is not like anything I have heard before." Sharma adjusted her equipment, her face pale in the glow of the screens. "It is not a message. It is more like a heartbeat, slow and steady, coming from directly ahead." Vasquez nodded. "Follow it." The signal grew stronger as they traveled. It filled the ship with a low, rhythmic pulse that seemed to vibrate in their bones. The humans found themselves breathing in time with it, their hearts matching its ancient tempo. After 3 days, they found the source. The Vorax megastructure was not a space station. It was not a ship. It was something else entirely. A mass of organic matter the size of a small moon, floating in the darkness between stars. Its surface was covered with patterns that might have been writing or might have been scars. Strange lights pulsed beneath its skin, following rhythms that hurt the human eye to watch. It was alive. The entire structure was alive. "God help us," Webb whispered. The ship approached slowly, its engines barely functioning. No weapons powered up to meet them. No shields activated. The megastructure simply waited, vast and patient, like a predator watching prey walk into its den. A docking port opened in the structure's side. It looked like a wound, raw and wet and wrong. But there was nowhere else to go. The humans guided their ship inside. The interior was worse than the exterior. The walls pulsed with something that might have been blood. The corridors breathed, expanding and contracting with slow, steady rhythm. The air was thick and warm and smelled of copper and decay. Strange shapes moved in the shadows, watching the humans with eyes that gleamed in the darkness. Drone constructs met them at the airlock. They were made of metal and flesh, fused together in ways that should have been impossible. They moved with jerky, unnatural motions, escorting the humans deeper into the structure. The corridor walls were lined with specimens, bodies preserved in crystal. Machines displayed like trophies, artifacts from civilizations that had died before humans existed. Each item was labeled in a language that Sharma could not read. Each one represented a world that had been consumed, a species that had been erased from existence. "They keep records," Tanaka said quietly, "of everything they destroy." "Not records," Webb replied. "Trophies." They walked for what felt like hours. The structure was vast, a maze of corridors and chambers that seemed to shift when no one was looking. Finally, the drone constructs brought them to a door that towered 10 meters high. It opened without sound. The chamber beyond was huge. A space carved from the living flesh of the megastructure, filled with soft light that seemed to come from nowhere. And in the center of the chamber, something waited for them. The Varax Prime. It had no fixed form. It was a mass of absorbed matter, constantly shifting and changing. One moment it had limbs. The next it was all eyes. Then it was something else entirely, something that human minds could not process. When it spoke, it used 1,000 voices. Men and women and children. Old voices and young voices. Voices filled with fear and hope and despair. The stolen voices of 1,000 dead civilizations. "You are the ones from the unregistered world." Captain Vasquez stepped forward. Her crew stayed behind her, but she could feel their presence at her back. Their courage, their fear, their desperate hope. "We are humanity," she said. "We have come to speak with you." The Varax Prime shifted. Faces appeared in its mass and then disappeared. Eyes opened and closed. The 1,000 voices laughed, and the sound was terrible. "Many have come to speak with us." They begged. They pleaded. They offered everything they had. "In the end, we consumed them all. I am not here to beg." "No?" The voices sounded curious now. "Then why have you come, mortal? Your world is already marked for death. Your species will be gone within your year. What could you possibly hope to achieve?" Vasquez took another step forward. "I came to ask you a question." Silence fell over the chamber. The Varax Prime's form stopped shifting for a moment. 1,000 eyes focused on the small human woman standing before it. A question? Yes, a simple question. Vasquez looked up at the ancient predator, at the being that had consumed countless worlds and erased countless species from existence. "You tried to kill us from a distance. An asteroid, anonymous, quiet. No one would ever know what happened to us." She paused. "Why?" The Varax Prime did not answer immediately. Its form rippled and changed, faces appearing and disappearing like waves on water. "You have lived for millions of years," Vasquez continued. "You have destroyed civilizations far more powerful than ours. The Council fears you. The entire galaxy fears you. And yet, when you found us, you did not come to consume us directly. You threw a rock at us from across the void and hoped no one would notice." She stepped closer, close enough to touch the shifting mass if she had dared to reach out. "You were afraid of us. A species that has barely left its own solar system. A species you could destroy with a fraction of your power. And you were afraid enough to try to kill us before we even knew you existed. Why?" The Varax Prime was silent for a long moment. Then the 1,000 voices spoke again, and this time there was something different in them. Something that might have been interest, or respect, or hunger. "You are bold, mortal. Bolder than most. Perhaps bold enough to hear the truth. Tell me." The Varax Prime shifted, and suddenly it had a face. A single face, made from the absorbed memories of 1,000 dead beings. It looked almost human, but wrong in ways that made Vasquez's skin crawl. "We have consumed everything we have encountered," the Varax Prime said. "We have taken the technology, the knowledge, the memories of every species in our path. We have grown stronger with each conquest. We have become more than we were. But there is one thing we cannot consume. One thing that remains beyond our grasp, no matter how many minds we absorb. Death." The face smiled, and it was terrible. "We do not die, mortal. We have not died in millions of years. We have forgotten what it means to end. And because of this, we cannot understand those who live in the shadow of death. We take their memories, but we cannot take their understanding. We absorb their minds, but their mortality remains opaque to us. And you," the voices whispered. "You mortals who live such brief, flickering lives. You do things that we cannot comprehend. You build knowing you will not see the completion. You love knowing you will lose. You hope knowing that hope is finite. We saw your species rising. We saw your potential. And we saw something that we have not seen in millions of years, a threat we could not calculate." Vasquez stood before the ancient predator, listening to the stolen voices of the dead. And for the first time since leaving Earth, she felt something other than desperation. She felt hope. "Then let me make you an offer," she said. The Varax Prime leaned forward, if something without a fixed form could be said to lean. 1,000 eyes focused on Captain Vasquez, burning with ancient hunger and something that might have been curiosity. An offer? The stolen voices carried notes of amusement. What could a mortal possibly offer us? We have consumed civilizations that span galaxies. We have absorbed knowledge older than your sun. What do you have that we could want?" Vasquez did not flinch. Behind her, she could feel her crew watching. She could feel their fear, their exhaustion, their desperate hope. They had come so far. They had risked everything. Now everything depended on the next few words. "Understanding," she said. The Varax Prime's form rippled with what might have been laughter. "Understanding? We have absorbed the minds of trillions. We carry the memories of every species we have consumed. What understanding do you think we lack?" "The understanding of death." Silence fell over the chamber. The shifting mass of the Varax Prime grew still. 1,000 eyes watched Vasquez with an intensity that made her bones ache. "You have lived for millions of years," Vasquez continued. "You have consumed everything in your path. You have grown stronger, more powerful, more intelligent than anything else in the galaxy. But you said it yourself. You cannot understand mortality. You cannot comprehend what it means to live in the shadow of death." She gestured at her crew. "We understand it. Every human who has ever lived has understood it. We wake up every morning, and our time is limited. We build our civilizations knowing they will fall. We love our families knowing we will watch them die or they will watch us die. And we do it anyway. That is what scares you about us. Not our technology. Not our weapons. Not anything we might build or create. You are afraid of our understanding, because it is the one thing in the universe that you cannot take." The Varax Prime's voices spoke in unison, low and thoughtful. "You are more perceptive than we expected. But perception is not value. Why should we spare your world simply because you understand something we do not? Because we can share that understanding." Now Vasquez reached into her suit and pulled out a small device. It was simple by Council standards, primitive by Varax standards, but it contained something that no technology could replicate. This holds the cultural archives of humanity. Our art, our music, our stories, our philosophy. Thousands of years of mortal beings trying to make sense of their brief existence. Trying to find meaning in lives that end. She held up the device. "Every species you have consumed wanted to live. They fought you. They resisted. They clung to existence with everything they had. But we are different. We have always known that we would die. We have spent our entire history learning how to face that knowledge. You cannot absorb our understanding by consuming us. The minds you take always struggle, always resist. The mortality you seek to comprehend is corrupted by the terror of dying. But this," she raised the device higher, "this is the distilled wisdom of beings who accepted death, who looked into the void and found meaning anyway." The Varax Prime was silent for a long moment. Its form shifted slowly, faces appearing and disappearing like clouds passing across the sun. "You offer us knowledge," the voices said finally. "But knowledge we can take by force. We could consume your world, absorb your species, and possess everything you have created." "Yes," Vasquez agreed. "You could. But you would get only the knowledge, not the understanding. Just like you have done for millions of years. Just like you will keep doing for millions more. Taking and taking and taking, but never truly comprehending what you take." She lowered the device. "Or you could let us live. Let us grow. Let us continue to create the art and philosophy and wisdom that you cannot generate yourself. We could become a source, not prey to be consumed, but partners in your quest to understand the one thing that has always escaped you. Partners?" The voices sounded strange now, almost uncertain. No species has ever offered partnership. They have only offered submission or resistance. That is because every species you have encountered was afraid to die. They could not think past their own survival. But we have accepted our deaths. We accepted them the moment we stepped onto this ship. Every human on this crew knew they would probably never see Earth again. Vasquez took a step closer to the vast shifting form. I am dying right now. The radiation from our journey is killing me. I have weeks left, maybe days. And I am still standing here, talking to you, because I believe that what happens after I am gone matters more than whether I survive. That is what mortality gives us. Not weakness, not fear. It gives us the ability to value things beyond ourselves, to care about futures we will never see, to love things we cannot keep. The Varax Prime's 1,000 eyes blinked slowly. You are dying? Yes. And you came here anyway? Yes. Knowing you would not return? Yes. Silence stretched between them. The organic walls of the chamber pulsed with their slow heartbeat. The drone constructs stood motionless. Waiting. Then the Varax Prime did something that it had not done in a million years. It hesitated. We have consumed beings who faced death bravely, the voices said slowly. We have absorbed warriors who charged into battle, knowing they would fall. But they always resisted at the end, always clung to their final moments, always hoped for some miracle that would save them. You do not hope for a miracle. No, Vasquez said simply. I hope for something better. I hope that my death will mean something, that the sacrifice my crew has made will save our world. That someday, humans will stand among the stars and know that we earned our place there. That is enough for me. That is enough for all of us. The Varax Prime's form shifted again. For a moment, something almost like a face appeared in the mass. A face that looked tired, ancient, confused. We do not understand you, the voices admitted. We have lived for millions of years. We have consumed everything in our path. We have grown more powerful than any being in the galaxy. And yet, we do not understand how a creature who will die in days can stand before us without fear. That is the gift of mortality, Vasquez said softly. When you know that everything ends, you learn to value the moments you have. You learn that some things are worth dying for. You learn that the story matters more than the ending. She looked up at the vast predator, at the being that had destroyed countless worlds and consumed countless species. And she smiled. Let me show you what that means. Behind her, Dr. Webb stepped forward. He moved slowly, his hands trembling slightly, but his voice was steady. I have spent my life studying the universe. I have calculated distances and probabilities and the likelihood of impossible things. I know exactly how unlikely it is that we are standing here right now. But we are standing here because humans do impossible things. Not because we are strong or smart or lucky, but because we refuse to accept that the impossible is impossible. We refuse to let the odds determine our choices. Lieutenant Tanaka spoke next. I have trained my entire life for combat. I know how to fight and how to kill. But the greatest warriors in human history were not the ones who won the most battles. They were the ones who chose their battles wisely, who fought for things worth fighting for, who were willing to lose everything for something greater than themselves. Engineer Asante stepped forward. I build things. I fix things. I take broken pieces and make them work again. That is what humans do. We take a universe that does not care about us and we build meaning into it. We create beauty and purpose where there was only chaos. Finally, Priya Sharma spoke, her voice soft but clear. I study languages, the ways that beings communicate across the void. And I have learned that the most important thing is not what is said, but what is understood. You have heard the words of every species you have consumed, but you have never understood what they meant. Because understanding requires connection, and connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability requires accepting that you might lose what you love. The 5 humans stood before the ancient predator. Small and fragile and impossibly brave. "We are offering you something no one has ever offered before," Captain Vasquez said. "Not submission, not resistance, not prey. We are offering you teachers." The Varax Prime's 1,000 eyes blinked slowly. The chamber fell silent except for the slow heartbeat of the living walls. Then the stolen voices spoke, and for the first time they spoke as one. "We will consider your offer." The humans waited. The Varax Prime considered the offer for 6 days. The humans waited in a chamber within the living megastructure. They were not prisoners, exactly, but they were not free either. The organic walls pulsed around them. Strange lights flickered in patterns that hurt the eye. The air was thick with the smell of copper and something older, something that had no name in human language. They did not sleep. They could not sleep. Every time one of them closed their eyes, they saw the vast shifting form of the Varax Prime. They heard the 1,000 stolen voices speaking in unison. They felt the weight of a decision that would determine the fate of their entire species. Captain Vasquez sat against the wall, conserving her strength. The radiation poisoning was getting worse. Her hands trembled when she tried to hold them still. Her vision blurred at the edges. She did not tell her crew how bad it was. They did not need to know. They had enough to worry about. On the 6th day, the door opened. A drone construct stood in the doorway, its metal and flesh body gleaming whitely in the dim light. It did not speak. It simply waited. Vasquez pushed herself to her feet. Her crew gathered around her, supporting her when she stumbled. Together they followed the drone through corridors that breathed and walls that watched. They walked for what felt like hours, deeper and deeper into the heart of the megastructure. Finally, they reached the chamber of the Varax Prime. It was different now. The vast shifting form had taken on a more stable shape. It still had no fixed appearance, but the constant churning had slowed. 1,000 eyes watched the humans enter, but they watched with something different than before. Something that might have been thought, or wonder, or acceptance. "We have considered your offer," the voices said. Vasquez stepped forward. Her legs felt weak, but her voice was steady. "And you have given us much to think about. In millions of years, no species has ever approached us this way. They have fled or fought or begged, but they have never offered to teach us. They have never suggested that we might have something to learn." The Varax Prime's form shifted, and suddenly it had a single face. It was not human. It was not any species the humans recognized, but it was a face, looking at them with something that might have been respect. "We have consumed countless minds. We have absorbed the knowledge and memories of civilizations beyond counting. We believed that we had learned everything there was to learn, that we had become complete. But you have shown us that we were wrong. There is one thing we cannot consume, one understanding that cannot be taken by force, the wisdom of beings who accept their own ending." The face smiled, and it was strange and terrible and almost gentle. "We accept your offer." Vasquez felt her knees go weak. Behind her, she heard Tanaka gasp. Asante made a sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Webb put his hand on Sharma's shoulder, steadying her as much as himself. "The fragment will be diverted," the Varax Prime continued. "Your world will survive. Your species will be given 100 of your years to grow and develop without interference from us. In exchange, you will share your wisdom, your art, your philosophy, the understanding that you have built over thousands of years of mortal existence. We will learn from you, and perhaps, in time, we will come to comprehend what has always escaped us." Vasquez nodded slowly. 100 years. "And after that?" "After that, we will see. Perhaps we will have learned enough. Perhaps we will want to learn more. Perhaps we will finally understand what it means to accept an ending. The ancient predator's form shifted again, and for a moment, it looked almost uncertain. Or perhaps you will surprise us again. You seem to be good at that. The humans left the Vorax megastructure 3 days later. Their ship was repaired, its engines restored to better than new condition by technology that humans would not understand for centuries. But the crew who flew it was changed. They had seen things that no human had ever seen. They had done things that should have been impossible. And they had won a victory that would echo through history. The journey back to the Eternal Spire took 2 weeks. The council was waiting for them. High Arbiter Varnth stood in the great chamber, his crystal body rigid with something that might have been shock. The other elder races gathered around him, their ancient minds struggling to process what had happened. "You survived," Varnth said. The words seemed to cost him something. "You went to the Varax, and you survived." "We did more than survive," Captain Vasquez said. She stood before the council, supported by her crew, her body failing but her spirit unbroken. "We made a deal. Earth will live. Humanity will have a century to grow. And the Varax will not expand during that time." The council erupted in chaos. Beings of light and silicon and forms beyond human understanding shouted and demanded explanations. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Cosmic Council lost its composure. Vasquez waited until the noise died down. Then she spoke again, her voice quiet but clear. "You have spent 8,000 years hiding from the Varax, building defenses, maintaining boundaries, hoping that if you waited long enough, the problem would go away. But problems do not go away. They grow, they adapt, they become stronger, and eventually they consume everything in their path." She looked around the chamber, at the ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy for longer than humanity had existed. "We are mortal. We live for barely a century. We are fragile and short-sighted and prone to making terrible mistakes. But we do not hide from our problems. We face them. We fight them. We find ways to solve them, or we die trying. That is what you forgot in all your millions of years. You forgot that sometimes the only way forward is through. Sometimes the only way to survive is to risk everything." High Arbiter Varnth was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, and his voice was different, softer, almost humble. "What do you want from us?" "Recognition," Vasquez said simply. "Humanity has earned its place among the stars. We want to be part of the galactic community. Not as petitioners or curiosities, but as equals. We want to be heard." The council debated for hours. But in the end, there was only one answer they could give. Humanity was accepted into the galactic community, not as full members of the council, but as an associate species with rights and protections and a voice in the great deliberations. For the first time in 10,000 years, a new species had been welcomed to the table. Captain Elena Vasquez died 3 weeks later. The radiation poisoning finally claimed her. On a quiet evening aboard the ship that had carried her across the stars. Her crew was with her at the end. They held her hands and spoke softly and told her that she had saved the world. She smiled and said that she had only done what any human would have done. Then, she closed her eyes and was gone. Her ashes were carried back to Earth on the same battered ship that had crashed into the furnace, Eternal Spire, and started everything. The whole world watched as the vessel descended through the atmosphere, trailing fire like a falling star. The memorial service was broadcast across the planet. Billions of people watched as Dr. Marcus Webb stood before the cameras and spoke the words that Elena Vasquez had asked him to say. She wanted you to know that the universe is vast and old and full of things that want us gone. There are predators out there that have destroyed civilizations beyond counting. There are beings so ancient that our entire history is a blink of their eye. There are powers that could erase us without a second thought. And she wanted you to know that none of that matters. Because we are human. We live brief lives in a cold universe. We love things we will lose. We build things that will crumble. We dream dreams that will never come true. But we do not stop. We never stop. That is what makes us who we are. That is what makes us human. The universe is waiting for us. It is vast and beautiful and terrible and strange. There are wonders out there that we cannot imagine and dangers we cannot comprehend. And we are going to face them all. And we are going to face them all. Not because we are strong. Not because we are smart. Not because we are brave. Because we are human. And humans do not stop. Webb looked up at the sky, at the stars that burned with ancient light, at the infinite darkness between them. Captain Vasquez gave her life to earn us a place among the stars. Now it is up to us to prove that we deserve it. Let us make her proud. 100 years stretched before humanity. 100 years to grow, to learn, to become something greater than they had ever been. 100 years before they would face the Virax again. It was not much time, but humans had never needed much time, had only ever needed a chance, and Elena Vasquez had given them that. Now they would make it count.